During that time, I had traveled throughout Europe. I had battled a severe bout of the flu, and I had buried my father. Then suddenly, for the first time since the pain began, I was all alone. My husband was on a 2-week business trip in Germany, and I didn't have any support network beyond him. The pain rose higher and higher, and it wouldn't let me sleep. And I would lie in bed with my pulse pounding in my ears. And when I'd finally doze off, the pain would rouse me with an intensity that terrified me. I was handling everything I needed to do for my kids and myself, but the pain was taking a toll. At this point, I never wrote beyond my professional duties. But for some curious reason, in the depths of pain, I began to write. And this is my journal entry from this time. If this is my life, how can I possibly get through it? How many more years till the kids are raised, and how can I make it? If no one loved me, I could check out, but people are counting on me. I'm trying to be positive, trying to find meaning, trying to be grateful. I'm tired. The illness is hidden even to myself. In the mirror, my face looks exhausted, lined, tear-stained, and pained. I feel like I'm trapped in my own personal hell. Can I give the pain to you for just a minute so that you can feel the cross I bear? One night, after dropping off my daughter at a friend's house, I stopped at a red light and I looked out at the landscape, and it was cast only in shades of gray. And as I watched the cars and the people scurrying about, it seemed like a world that I no longer inhabited. It seemed superficial and unreal. So that same night, I'm lying in bed, and I looked up and I saw this book sitting on the shelf above my bed called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And my brother gave me this book for Christmas 2 years before, and I tried to read it once. But when I got to the part where the author talked about being more than his body and his mind, I thought, well, this guy has suffered from major depression, and in response to that stress, he has learned to shut off his frontal lobes, and he's activating another part in his brain, most likely the posterior parietal lobe. So with that, his new ideas were completely suspect. I shut the book, and it went up on my shelf. But for some reason that night, I reached up and I started to read it. And in the first chapter, Eckhart Tolle discusses that we're more than the activity of our minds. And he has the reader tune in to their inner dialogue and to recognize that underneath all that chatter, there is actually more. Well, I was aware of this inner dialogue because mine was incessant and almost always negative. And so when I went and tried to concentrate on moving beneath it, all of a sudden I felt this huge electrical force in my heart, like, and go from my heart down, out my arms and out my legs, out my hands, out my feet. And then I'm thinking, well, that was strange. And so then the next night I'm in bed crying and I'm hurting, and I just said, if there is any help out there, now would be the time. And 5 times from the top of my head down through my whole body was the same electrical charge. Just on the 5th time, I was crying and laughing at the same time. And I said, okay, I get that I'm loved. So in the past, I would have written off this experience as a neural pathway in overdrive because of the pain. But it was different this time. I just knew that even if my body was consumed with pain and illness, and even if I suffered major depression, there was a deeper part of me, and this was not going to die. I also knew that when I had nowhere else to turn, there was actually more within. So that night, a scary experience turned into something exciting, and my predictable life turned into a journey full of potential. I have no idea what happened to me. I have no explanation for it and why it changed my perspective. But over the next month, things kept happening that helped me accept it. I was sitting in a whirlpool in the gym, and as usual, everybody's talking about their aches and pains. That's all the topic is in the whirlpool, right? And so this woman, Myra, tells me that she had suffered with fibromyalgia for 2 years and she was bedridden. And then for the last year, she really dug deep and she was getting her life back. And she told me that she relied on her connection with God to give her strength. Well, at that time, the idea of God didn't really resonate with me, but I told her what I experienced on that dark night. And she said that was the grace of God. And so that night, I was reading Eckhart Tolle again, and I read, "Awakening is a shift in consciousness in which thinking and awareness separate. The initiation of the awakening process is an act of grace." I'm like, oh, there's that term again, grace. Okay. So then a few months later, I read something by Deepak Chopra that made sense to me. He described how our view of reality is determined by our capability to perceive and to process sensory information. So throughout history, our view has changed whenever humans have enhanced their sensory capabilities with technology. For example, before microscopes or the Geiger counter, cells or radiation were unknown to us, but they were always there. And only when we could perceive them with this new technology did they really become part of our worldview. So after my experiences on that desperate night, I was a little more open to the possibility that there was more to this world than I could pick up with my 5 senses. Now, because I am a physical therapist that works with neurological disorders, I thought about the brain too. And I thought, if sensory information is processed with a different neural pathway or in a different way, that could also change my worldview. I knew that much of the brain was uncharted territory where we don't even know what its function is. And I also knew that the brain could change with practice or experience. So I wondered if the stress of that night opened up just a little ability of my brain to process more of what already is out there. On a walk in the neighborhood around that time, I mentioned to my husband Alex, the stars are really out tonight. And then I thought, wow, that's really a silly statement because the stars are always out, even in the light of day. But now that conditions had changed, I could see them. And I thought what happened to me on that painful night was a little like stargazing because it was really, really dark, I could see more.